the short of it is in 2017, I started putting these systems in place. When I say systems, I started simplifying the processes of my direct sales business to make it easy for a 17 to 22-year-old with no experience to be able to model without me being there. So I questioned everything. I took every single scenario, every part of that business, every department. I put it in like my marketing department, the sales department, the fulfillment department, administrative department, payroll, every single department of the business. And I put if-thens, flow charts for every single individual part. If then, all the different flows. And then question, where could we put in tech, some sort of automation or technology in place to make that if then possible? And then it's like, where can I put team? What is the team that could be put into place? Humans, specifically offshore assistants or lower cost wage workers than me, into place to get some of those processes done. So build out this entire process, because at Better Than Rich, we define a system as a series of processes, policies, and technologies that aid in the goal of the business. What is a process? A process is a series of if-then statements. So that was the first thing I did. All these if-thens of the business. The policies are just written documentation to back up those if-then statements. So the policies were these documentation. For me, that was a bunch of Google Docs. There's a bunch of Google Docs and Google Sheets, and that's how we tracked everything. And so the documentation that back up the process of who's doing what, by when, and then the technology, well, our technology was WhatsApp for our internal communication channel, Google Sheets for our tracking, Google Docs for our templates that we would follow. Then we brought in Thinkific for our learning management software that we would use to host our videos. We use Loom to record our videos. We use Zoom for recording our meetings. So using some of these technologies to aid in some of this, using Zapier as one of the automations to speak, so that way our texting platform is speaking to Gmail, so it's sending a text and an email at the same time, and both of those are getting triggered by a Google Sheet populated by someone filling out a Google form. So it's like the technology and all of that being able to communicate happening behind the scenes, so a human is no longer the bottleneck. So these are the things I was questioning on, how can we get all these things done? So I was building that out 2016, 17, 18, 19. And then when COVID hit 2020, it was like, all right, let's test all of this stuff. And when a lot of companies were floundering with uncertainty during that time frame, I was ready to just push play, and we pushed play, and the business just was crushing. I mean, we did the record in my category I was in was 2.5 million in sales for the better part of the whole, the company's been around for 60 years, and we did 2.4 million. So we just missed the all-time record by just a little bit in the midst of COVID, where most people were really floundering. So that was a test. And at the end of 2020, my son was born on December 31st, on New Year's Eve, 2020. And that's when it really was like, let's see if this really is going to work, because we didn't know, but he was born 26 weeks. He was born at premature, 1 pound, 4 ounces. And because of all those systems and everything I put in place, I didn't know I was going to be in the hospital for 8.5 months with him. But during that 254 days that my wife and I were in the hospital with my son, my business was able to run without me. So because of all those if-thens and simplifying before the circumstance happened, I was able to remove myself during the circumstance. So 8.5 months, it produced over 250,000 in revenue and 6 figures in net profit. As I mentioned, without me there, I got out of the hospital September 10th, 2021. And I called up my now business partner, Andrew, and I said, we need to build underneath Better Than Rich. We need Better Than Rich was like a coaching company. It's like, we need to build something underneath Better Than Rich to teach other busy entrepreneurs how to do this, because there's no way. My wife became a full-time medical mama. She's taking care of our son. I already was making decent money, but it's now I got to replace her $75,000 a year income. And also with the same amount of time that I was spending. So we took everything, put it into the business. So my direct sales business was running without me. And then we started teaching these busy entrepreneurs how to do it. And now it's just this machine. And we're 18, 19 months in of doing this and taking these exact principles, teaching other people, living it with ourselves. Our business is doing since December anywhere between $40,000 to $60,000 in monthly recurring revenue, and we're building our own business doing this, teaching other entrepreneurs doing this, and our entrepreneurs are winning back their time systemizing their business. Like, we have one of our clients runs a mental health company, and her company was near bankrupt, and she's going to do over 7 figures this year again for the second year in a row, after being like negative most of her time before she started working and implementing some of these systems. We have another woman who runs a staging company for real estate. She 3x'd her growth in her first year of implementing these systems. She was a teacher, knew nothing about business systems, started putting this into place, 3x her growth. We had another one of our clients in sales. She ended up having 80 travel days last year, so was able to win back 80 travel days of her time while doubling her revenue last year, which was a really big win for her. So it's really fun just to see the results of what we're doing. On average, our clients will typically win back about 100 to 120 hours every day, leveraging our virtual assistant team. So just on average, that's about 3 to 5 hours or so that every one of our clients are getting back every single day, just by leveraging offshore assistance, not including automation. So for us to be able to build a business that allows us to leverage our genius while implementing this in my other direct sales business, while helping our clients win back their time, it's really been fascinating. That's a very, very long rant, Kyle, on what we're doing and what we do and what we've done. But I could go in any direction, but that's what immediately showed up for me.
Dude, that's what I wanted you to do. I wanted you to dive in. And I think as people were digesting that, they were having the same reaction as me. They're saying, this has to be the answer. This has to be the path to walk down. This has to be the way my business is going to move forward. I think there's a lot of ignorance out there with business owners and entrepreneurs. I mean, Mike, would you say that when you see an entrepreneur or engage with an entrepreneur, sometimes it's like, hey, I'm in the thick, I'm in the weeds, I'm running my business, I'm doing good work, I'm serving my clients, but thinking about doing the hard work you did. One of my favorite quotes, dig your well before you were thirsty. I mean, that's where it gets very real, man. If you would not have had the preparation, would your business have just gone to the wayside during a crisis that you weren't going to not prioritize, right?
It would have made me have to make a more difficult choice than I did, because it was an easy decision. It was like, the business is going to run, I'm going to spend time with the fam, and that was it. And it was an easy decision. It wasn't even a decision because it was already made. But I probably would have had to question some things and trying to figure things out, because we didn't know how long we were going to be in the hospital. So more than likely, with that uncertainty, there would have been a lot more challenge and a lot more chaos and probably more consequences because of it. So to your point, I've been saying since that moment is JFK's quote, the best time to work on the roof is when the sun is shining. Same concept, where these business owners, you said entrepreneurs. Here's what I would say to an entrepreneur. There's really a couple different types of entrepreneurs. There's the salespeople who are really good at sales that said, you know what, I'm going to become a business owner. And salespeople are really good at transactions, but business owners, entrepreneurs, need to understand systems and operations. And systems and operations is different than transactions. Transactions is a part of the machine, but it's not the whole machine. So it's important that those individuals sometimes get lost. And then there's individuals who really love like a certain skill or a certain service, or they're really passionate about something, so they start a business. I love cars, so they start a mechanic shop, or they really love fixing things, so they whether it's plumbing or something else, so they start a business. But that if they're the one that's really good at that skill, they're good at the skill, which is the fulfillment, but they're not good at the systems and the operations. So that's where they get a little stuck. So they're already going into becoming a business owner or an entrepreneur with the lens of, I'm going to be working inside the business doing the thing, versus working on the business to set up the machine where the thing gets done without me. So it's a different
Hmm.
flip of a switch, and that's where it gets stuck for most people. So what we teach our clients on what to do is start small. What are the gaps in your schedule where you could start working on the business in these small gaps? So for some of our clients, it might be just 1 hour to start the day. 1 hour to start the day, just work there, work on the business, just in strategy. And then it'll grow to a half a day on like a Monday. Let's just take 4 hours, turn off the phone, and just strictly work on design. What are the
Mm.
design principles? What do we need to work on the business on? Just creating the space in the schedule for imagination and creativity to exist. So we start small with some of them. Right now, I'm taking 3 weeks. I'm taking 3 weeks off, and I'm shutting off all technology and taking a road trip with the family, and like that's really cool. I took a week off when you and I we went to Utah at a retreat. It's like to be able to do that where you take these longer periods of time, and that's where really beautiful creativity can show up as well. And that's something you could eventually build to as an entrepreneur. But I think starting small, having time set aside to work on creative thinking, or at least allow creativity to exist, where you're not just being in reactive mode constantly to like inquiries or phone calls or problems or fires or stuff like that. It's like it really becomes challenging to scale if you're constantly working inside the business.
Yeah, man, and I think that when I was exposed to ADS, automation delegation systems, as you guys say it, that was the foreign concept to me. Like I'd love to think that I work on my business, but I know my muscle memory is just to get in it, start turning knobs. And when I saw you guys giving groundwork to stop, and I think what you said might be really threatening to some people, like, wait, we're gonna take an hour just to like design and think and time. How can you speak to people right now that are like, okay, all this is sounding great, man, but next week I got a full schedule already, Mike.
Sure.
The week after that, I got appointments that are booking in. Like how do you really walk people down this? And even more than that, man, if I say, okay, Mike, I'm going to commit to that hour on Monday, I'm going to start with an hour. I even want you to say like, what do I do during that hour? If I want to start, like, and I know this is part of the coaching, but I just want people to get their minds going. Like, what
No,
would you
yeah,
do
let's
if you
let's jam.
get into design mode?
Two things that immediately show up is number one is boundaries. So you as the owner need to get clear of what your boundaries are before you can build any of this out. And what I mean by boundaries is your schedule is already filled because that's what you allowed to happen, which is good. You didn't know exactly what the boundaries are, or you knew what the boundaries are and you allowed people to book up your schedule for you. That's totally cool. And fact is, if you had a doctor's appointment or something that was really important that you had to put in the schedule, it would have been put in the schedule and you would have had the all those calls booked around it. So you have to get clear of what those boundaries are beforehand. Your schedule filled up based upon whatever boundaries you allowed. So get clear of what you are willing to accept or willing to tolerate, or what are priorities for you. That's going to be number one. So if you create the boundary, people will honor whatever boundaries you're going to create for them. How do you do that, or how tactical wise? I use Calendly for all my scheduling. So there's probably, without exaggeration, maybe 25 different Calendly links that I have for all different types of meetings. So whether it's a client meeting or like internal facing meeting, or for multiple businesses that I have. So there's probably 25 different types of events, but they're all cross checking with one calendar. So for my 3 week road trip, I just block off my one calendar. I didn't touch my Calendly. So all
Mm-hmm.
25 events didn't change. The only thing that changed was I just went in and blocked off from 8 to 9, 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. for those 3 weeks. So anyone who clicks on any of the events to book a time with me, they say that I'm unavailable. So I didn't have to go in fact, I didn't have to do anything because my virtual assistant is who blocked off my calendar for me. So that just a little small little asterisk there. But anyway, but the whole concept is no one gets on my calendar unless they have a link, and they have a link that cross checks the availabilities that I already put, which is 9 to 5 Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and 9 to 3 on Friday. So all meetings are put into that filter. everything before and after
Yep.
that, those times, around those times. So that's number one. Number two question that you said is, what do you do within the time that, so Mondays I work on the business, mornings I work on the business. What do you do with that time? I would recommend, if someone's starting out square one, I would say make a list of all of the activities that you do that are under $25 an hour. That's where I would start. Make a list of all the activities that you do that are under $25 an hour, or that you could pay someone else to do for under $25 an hour. That would be number one. And then I would build out a structure to hire a team to take all of those tasks away from you. That would be step number two that I would design. What are all my under $25 hour tasks? How can I build a process to hire a team to handle all of those for me? That would be number two. Then number three, once I have that offloaded, then I would say, what are the $25 to $75 an hour tasks that I do? All of those items. And I can I can give you a list of what those might be if you want, but just to capture the concept here, then I would say the same thing. What type of team and tech I could put in place to offload those tasks for me? So that way, everything that's above $75 an hour, that's where I spend my time. And then once I get a little bit more in that zone of genius, everything from 75 to 200, that's probably mostly sales. I would put a sales team in place. That's what they do. And therefore, all I'm doing is the over $200 an hour activities, which is typically going to be like strategy, networking, those types of things, depending on what industry you're in. So that would be the process that I would walk someone through, or that I would suggest someone to walk through if they're an entrepreneur and they're to say, what do I do to work on my business? That's what I would do to work on my business. Under $25 an hour tasks first. Try to simplify them or systemize them or delegate those or automate those and build a system and infrastructure about them. Then the 25 to 75. What's under 25? I'll just rapid fire. Anything admin, social media, inbox management, data entry, any of that stuff. What's 25 to 75? Copywriting, video editing, graphic design work, anything under that vein. Then that might be running. Sometimes it's running meetings. Sometimes it's conducting meetings. That, depending on the meeting, it might be someone else who needs to do that stuff. So depends on the industry.
Yeah, and when this falls in that simple, not easy category, right? Like this stuff it's like, I've heard this, man. This makes sense. Like, how do I not have a list of all those activities? And I just want to remind the audience, anybody that's owning a business, anybody that has a business that's active, it's making, money, and they want to move towards this more of that time freedom, having options, this is absolutely crucial for you to eventually get any sort of reprieve. You have to think through these things. When are you going to do it? It can't always just happen in the shower, And so what you just said, in 1 hour, I could definitely accomplish that in 1 hour. And then by repeating that, that time block, that boundary that I have in my life, man, I could see where you'd slowly move the ball downfield.